In this video, we will review the book, The Invention of Morel, a philosophical and literary analysis. Remember to subscribe and share. Adolfo Bioy Casares' novella, The Invention of Morel, 1940, stands as one of the most influential works of Latin American science fiction, bridging the gap between metaphysical inquiry and speculative narrative. Written during a period of literary experimentation in Argentina, the work emerged from Casares' close collaboration with Jorge Luis Borges, who contributed a now-famous prologue praising the work's perfect plot. Borges, 1940-2003. The novella tells the story of a fugitive who arrives on a deserted island only to encounter mysterious tourists who appear and disappear cyclically, leading him to discover Morel's extraordinary invention, a machine capable of recording and eternally reproducing three-dimensional representations of reality. This analysis explores the multifaceted dimensions of Casares' work, examining its philosophical underpinnings, narrative structure, thematic complexity, and enduring influence on contemporary literature and cinema. The narrative structure of The Invention of Morel employs a diary format that creates an intimate yet unreliable first-person perspective, allowing Casares to blur the boundaries between subjective experience and objective reality. The unnamed narrator's fragmented entries reflect his deteriorating mental and physical state, creating ambiguity about whether the events described are genuine discoveries or manifestations of isolation-induced madness. Levine, 2001. This structural choice forces readers to question the reliability of perception itself, as the narrator's observations become increasingly suspect while simultaneously providing the only lens through which the story unfolds. The diary format also creates temporal complexity, as the narrator records events in real time while simultaneously attempting to piece together the mystery of the island's inhabitants. Casares masterfully uses this structure to mirror the central technological conceit of the novel. Just as Morel's machine captures and endlessly repeats moments in time, the diary preserves and repeats the narrator's consciousness, creating layers of recorded reality that challenge linear conceptions of narrative and existence. The theme of reality versus illusion forms the philosophical core of The Invention of Morel, anticipating contemporary debates about virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and the nature of consciousness. Morel's invention challenges fundamental assumptions about what constitutes authentic existence by creating perfect, three-dimensional recordings of people that repeat their actions eternally without awareness of their recorded state. Balderston, 1993. The narrator's growing obsession with Faustine, one of the recorded figures, raises profound questions about the nature of love, connection, and whether relationships require mutual consciousness or can exist through one-sided devotion to an image. Casares presents a universe where the distinction between original and copy, between life and its reproduction, becomes increasingly meaningless. The recorded figures appear to possess all the qualities of living beings except consciousness and the ability to deviate from their programmed actions. This philosophical problem anticipates modern discussions about the simulation hypothesis and whether consciousness might itself be a kind of recording or program, making the novel remarkably prescient in its exploration of themes that would become central to late 20th and early 21st century philosophy and science fiction. Immortality emerges as both promise and curse throughout the narrative, as Morel's machine offers a kind of eternal life that simultaneously represents a form of death. The machine preserves individuals in perpetual stasis, forever repeating the same week of their lives without awareness, growth, or change. Wolf, 2016. This conception of immortality strips away agency, consciousness, and the capacity for new experiences, reducing existence to mechanical repetition. The narrator's ultimate decision to insert himself into this recorded reality, knowing it will kill his physical body, represents a tragic paradox. He chooses death to achieve a form of life with Faustine, even though she will never be aware of his presence. Casares thus presents immortality not as transcendence, but as imprisonment, an existence frozen in time that preserves appearance while eliminating essence. The novel suggests that authentic life requires mortality, change, and consciousness, and that any attempt to preserve life by removing these elements results in something fundamentally different from life itself. This critique of technological immortality resonates with contemporary debates about life extension, cryonics, and digital consciousness preservation. Obsession and unrequited love drive the narrator's tragic journey, transforming the novel from science fiction puzzle to profound meditation on desire and human connection. The narrator's fixation on Faustine intensifies from mere attraction to all-consuming passion, despite her complete unawareness of his existence. De Toro, 1999. His love develops through observation alone, constructed entirely from his interpretations of her recorded actions, making it perhaps the purest example of one-sided devotion in literature. Casares explores how love can exist independently of reciprocation, recognition, or even reality, sustained solely by the lover's imagination and will. The narrator's willingness to sacrifice his consciousness and life to exist in Faustine's recorded week, even knowing she will never perceive him, demonstrates the extremes to which obsessive love can drive human behavior. The novel raises uncomfortable questions about whether such love represents noble devotion or pathological delusion, whether the narrator's actions constitute romantic sacrifice or solipsistic fantasy. This treatment of obsessive love influenced countless later works, from Hitchcock's Vertigo to contemporary explorations of parasocial relationships and the nature of connection in an increasingly mediated world. The island setting functions as both literal location and symbolic space, representing isolation, liminality, and the boundary between civilization and wilderness. The unnamed island exists outside normal geographical and political boundaries, making it the perfect location for Morel's transgressive experiment. Cristal, 2002. For the narrator, a political fugitive, the island initially represents refuge from prosecution, but it gradually transforms into a prison from which escape becomes impossible and ultimately undesirable. The island's physical features, including the mysterious tides, the museum, the chapel, and the swimming pool, create a contained yet complex environment that mirrors the enclosed artificial reality created by Morel's machine. Casares uses the island's isolation to strip away social conventions and ethical constraints, creating a space where extreme philosophical and technological experiments become possible. The vegetation that attacks the narrator, the unbearable heat, and the sense of the island as hostile environment reflect his deteriorating physical condition and increasing disconnection from material reality. As a liminal space between life and death, reality and recording, the island becomes a metaphor for transitional states of consciousness and existence. The science fiction elements of The Invention of Morel demonstrate Casares' remarkable ability to ground fantastic premises in plausible technological speculation. Morel's machine operates by recording not just visual and auditory information, but all sensory data across multiple wavelengths, including those imperceptible to human senses, then projecting this information back into three-dimensional space. Pages, 2010. Casares provides sufficient technical detail to make the invention credible within the story's logic, while avoiding excessive exposition that would undermine narrative momentum. The machine's fatal side effect, that recording subjects' consciousness kills them by drawing energy from their cells, adds tragic consequence to technological achievement and suggests that some forms of knowledge or preservation come at costs too high to justify their pursuit. The novel anticipates virtual reality technology, holography, and digital consciousness preservation by decades, demonstrating science fiction's capacity to imagine technological possibilities before their realization. Casares' treatment of technology as both miraculous and dangerous, capable of fulfilling human desires while destroying human essence, established a paradigm that influenced subsequent science fiction writers' approaches to technological speculation and its philosophical implications. Jorge Luis Borges's prologue to The Invention of Morel significantly shaped the novel's reception and established its place within the canon of Latin American literature. Borges praised Casares for creating a perfect plot and for demonstrating that adventure stories can be superior to the psychological novel. Borges, 1940-2003, par 5. This endorsement from one of the 20th century's most influential writers elevated the novella's status and legitimized science fiction as a vehicle for serious philosophical inquiry. Borges recognized that Casares had transcended genre conventions to create a work that explored fundamental questions about reality, consciousness, and existence through the framework of fantastic invention. The Borges-Casares collaboration extended beyond this specific work to include their joint editing of science fiction anthologies and their shared interest in fantastic literature as a means of philosophical exploration. Fishburne, 1998. Borges's prologue positioned The Invention of Morel within a literary tradition that values formal innovation and philosophical depth over realistic representation, helping to establish science fiction as a legitimate mode of literary expression in Latin American letters. This validation contributed to the development of magical realism and other forms of fantastic literature that would come to characterize Latin American narrative. The novel's influence on cinema has been substantial and well documented, with multiple filmmakers acknowledging its impact on their work. Alain Resnais, Last Year at Marienbad, 1961, borrows the novel's ambiguous treatment of time, memory, and repeated events, creating a cinematic equivalent of Casares' literary techniques. Monaco, 2009. More explicitly, the television series Lost incorporated numerous elements from The Invention of Morel, including the deserted island setting, mysterious inhabitants, and themes of temporal repetition and technological experimentation. The novel's exploration of recorded reality and the indistinguishability of reproduction from original anticipates themes central to films like The Matrix, Inception, and Black Mirror episodes that question the nature of reality and consciousness. Casares' vision of technology that captures and preserves human experience while destroying its essence resonates with contemporary concerns about social media, digital immortality, and the increasingly mediated nature of human experience. The novella's cinematic qualities, including its visual descriptions and emphasis on observation, make it particularly amenable to film adaptation, while its philosophical depth ensures that such adaptations engage with substantive questions about existence and perception. The ethical dimensions of The Invention of Morel become increasingly relevant as technology approaches the capabilities Casares imagined. Morel's decision to record his friends without their initial consent raises questions about bodily autonomy, informed consent, and the ethics of preserving consciousness without the subject's awareness. Hales, 1999. The machine effectively murders the recorded individuals to achieve a form of preservation they did not choose, making Morel both visionary inventor and mass murderer. The narrator's subsequent decision to record himself with full knowledge of the consequences represents a different ethical category, autonomous choice of death in pursuit of a desired form of existence, however illusory. Casares presents these ethical dilemmas without clear resolution, forcing readers to confront difficult questions about the boundaries of acceptable technological intervention in human existence. As contemporary technology advances toward brain-computer interfaces, consciousness uploading, and other forms of radical life extension, the ethical frameworks proposed or implied in The Invention of Morel become increasingly urgent. The novel suggests that technological capability does not automatically justify technological implementation, and that preserving life's form while destroying its substance may constitute a category of harm, requiring new ethical vocabularies. Symbolism permeates The Invention of Morel, with objects, settings, and actions carrying meanings beyond their literal functions. The machine itself symbolizes humanity's desire to transcend mortality and preserve beauty against time's erosion, while simultaneously representing the danger of reducing life to mechanical reproduction. Linares, 2003. The weekly cycle that the recorded figures repeat suggests humanity's cyclical nature, the repetition of patterns and behaviors that characterize existence even in the absence of external constraints. Faustine's name evokes Goethe's Faust, linking the narrator's obsession to the traditional bargain of soul for desired object, though here the bargain is made with technology rather than supernatural forces. The sunset that the recorded figures watch repeatedly becomes a symbol of beauty preserved, but also of ending frozen before completion, of time simultaneously stopped and repeated endlessly. Water appears throughout the novel as both life-giving and threatening element, suggesting the dual nature of the forces the characters must navigate. These symbolic layers enrich the novel's literal narrative, allowing multiple readings and ensuring that the work sustains repeated examination and interpretation. The Invention of Morel ultimately stands as a meditation on the human condition, using science fiction premises to explore timeless questions about love, mortality, consciousness, and what constitutes authentic existence. Casares created a work that transcends its genre classification to achieve philosophical and literary significance that remains undiminished decades after publication. The novel's influence extends across literature, cinema, and philosophical discourse, anticipating technological and social developments that have made its central concerns increasingly relevant. The narrator's tragic choice to abandon conscious life for eternal recorded proximity to his beloved represents the extreme expression of human desire to transcend the limitations of mortality and circumstance, even at the cost of everything that makes life meaningful. In an age of increasing technological mediation, virtual reality, and digital preservation of human experience, Casares' vision serves as both warning and prophecy, suggesting that the tools we create to enhance or preserve life may fundamentally alter what life means. The novel endures because it recognizes that technological questions are ultimately human questions, that scientific possibilities raise philosophical necessities, and that our attempts to transcend human limitations may paradoxically reveal what is most essential and irreplaceable about human existence. Remember to subscribe and share.